So yes, we are live. Do we get to see the audience here? No, I don't think so. Okay, so we will get started. Hi everyone. Shall we get started? Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. I am Aditi Agrawal. I think I can call myself safely a play design expert and a founder at Gudgudee. And Today, I'm going to do something I genuinely love. That is to have a conversation that really matters. And it's March, the month when we celebrate the Women's Day. And we are not here to talk about boardrooms or glass ceilings today. We are here to talk about something that I would argue is even more foundational. Somewhere right now, I feel there's a 6-year-old being asked to sit still in a classroom, asked to stop asking questions and wait for instructions. But somewhere else in Chennai, in Bangalore, there are women who have decided that that's simply not how things can function. And today we talk to two of them. Welcome to the Play-led Revolution. And that's the topic for our LinkedIn Live today. So now I know you might be thinking it's Women's Day and we're talking about classrooms. Well, I think here is why this is the Women's Day conversation. The people who are quietly, stubbornly redesigning how an entire generation experiences childhood, experiences education, are overwhelmingly women. Not because it was handed out to them, but because they went and built it themselves because they felt that there was something missing, because they felt the need for it. And to me, that is the most powerful kind of leadership story.
With me today are two such.
Aditi,
Just a second. The camera is off.
Aditi, your video I can't see. I don't know if others can see.
Sorry, my camera got off. I realized. Is it working now?
Yeah, I didn't want to stop you in the middle,
So,
but
with me today are two women who are leading this change. Priya Dixit, she leads Akshar Arbor International School in Chennai. It is a K-12 school with both IB and Cambridge credentials. And what makes Priya remarkable is that she didn't just build a school, she built it around a different philosophy of what a school can even mean in a system that doesn't always make it very easy. And Niyati Handa, she is the co-founder of Eklavya Early Years, where belief is simple but radical, that the early years of a child's life deserve the most intentional and child-centered design. Because what a child feels in that first classroom is taken for every classroom that they enter after. So welcome Priya, welcome Niyati. Really happy
thank
to
you
have
so
you.
much.
Thank
Thank,
you. Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Aditi. Lovely to be with you on the panel, Niyati.
thank you so much, Priya.
I'm
Thank
not
you,
able to
Aditi.
hear you guys properly. Sorry, let me just try. Could we try again? Can you hear me properly?
Yeah,
Okay.
A little bit of an echo, but
There's an echo. Okay, let me switch back to.
Is it better now?
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So yes, and as I was saying that between I think both of you, you cover the full arc of childhood and education. Like I think Niyati covers the first half where the it's the first classroom that a child walks into, and then Priya works with children till the K-12, where that last classroom where it prepares them for the world for the world and and both of you have said no to the factory model of traditional classrooms. And let's deep dive into it and how you got started and how what is your approach like. So I think, Priya, the first question is for you. You started your school 15 years back in Chennai, which was, I think, and is in a lot of ways very traditional in terms of how it approaches education. You know, it is very focused on CBSE, ICSE, and how was your journey when you started this school, and why did you choose a different approach while doing this? Where did that stem from? So, if you could take us on your journey and how you built Akshar.
Okay, perhaps like a 15-year journey to be kind of encapsulated very quickly. Um, the first thing is we did not start Akshar Arbor with a grand plan or with a blueprint or anything in place. It was just a very, very small thought when we kind of realized that skills was something that we didn't see um, in many of the places that I was exposed to. So some conversations around it kick-started, and that's when we were actually looking at a post grade 12 space to say, okay, what is the kind of upskilling that we could bring in? But many conversations with a lot of deep thinkers, educationalists, we realized that this is something that needs to start off when somebody is really young. So the 6 to 12 model became kindergarten to 12 model, and that's when we made our first foray into it. I would also say that this sense also came because there was a bit of an discomfort. We don't come from having worked in schools or having run schools or huge businesses. None of that are, we didn't have very deep pockets where this was just yet another business venture we were getting into. But somewhere about the schooling, because it was our own personal experience. And then when you kind of get into a motherhood, you start looking at it very, very differently. I think it was, and when you are working, you start to have that kind of an exposure. So all of these experiences collectively helped us form what Akshar Arbor is today. And in that respect, I would say that these experiences also stems from the fact that we went to good institutions, we were fairly decent performers in the school, but you saw that there was a mismatch between what was given and what was expected. And today I'm able to put a word to it, and I think that is kind of this unpreparedness. Which I originally thought was nervousness, but it's the unpreparedness. How do you prepare yourself for the next stage? And that's what education is about. So, to cut a very much longish story short, I would say that when Akshar Arbor kind of germinated, the idea was about what does meaningful learning look like? What is meaningful learning? And how do we truly begin that with a child in the center? And the 15-year journey has just been all kinds of paths traveled for us to be where we are and miles to go before we sleep.
Wonderful, Priya. Um, so, Niyati, you are working on the very early years where I feel that if you do the factory model or the traditional classroom, it does even more damage because, that is early years are the mold where you set things. And if this setting goes a little wrong, then, a lot of things later need to be keep getting corrected.
Correct.
Now, and I know, Eklavya early years and the kind of approach that you guys take. I love the approach and everything. But what does it look like for you? What does protecting the child-centered approach look like for you when the world around you, the parents, even the well-meaning educators, the society is saying, okay, when is the actual learning starting? When are they actually, going to do, for example, numbers and everything? So how do you balance that thing about letting children be, but at the same time, they're learning?
Okay. So what you said is absolutely correct. That if you kill that natural curiosity, that natural instinct to learn at this sort of early childhood stage, then it you can't get it back, right?
Hmm.
It fundamentally changes you. So
Hmm.
getting it right at this stage, I think, is really important, and that's what we've always aimed for. Um, how do I manage expectations? So we understand that there are certain things like being able to read like a paragraph by the end of upper KG, or being able to write a sentence, a small sentence. Um, Basic maths and all of that. We understand that and we put it into our curriculum. But at the same time, we make it very, very clear to the parents when they take admission right at the beginning, when they first come for an inquiry, that we are not going to be focusing solely on that, and we're not the kind of place which will which will try to force the child to start writing well before they're ready for it. So it's
Hmm.
unfortunate that I hear stories from so many parents that their 2 year olds have been forced to write. 3 year
Hmm.
olds are being asked to write question answers, things like that. When they are absolutely unprepared for it, it's absolutely age inappropriate. So we make life very clear in the beginning that reading will come uh, post the age of 4. Writing will come only post the age of 5, which is a big
Hmm.
shock to parents. But we work it out with them. We help them understand that these muscles have to become developed. Otherwise, you cannot. The more you strain this, trying to get them to write accurately, the more fatigue will set in. A lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of lack of interest in writing will come up, and then you will have other problems throughout the academic life of the child. So we see that when we very upfront tell the parents, um, many of them agree and they understand. um, so that is one thing. But I
Hmm.
would have, I would also say that for us, we never present the curriculum, nor do we devise a curriculum in school keeping in mind only academics. So the entire curriculum is has sensorial in it, has language in it, has music and theater, and um, uh, we have, like, for example, practical life skills and so on and so forth, and all those things are given equal if not more weightage than the
Hmm.
English and the math. So we make that very clear to them. Like today, we had, for example, a dirty day. So we had children, we had made a muddy, slushy area, and
So
all the
fun.
children would just spend the whole morning enjoying sort of being inside the mud and playing with it and getting really, really messy and dirty. And because we worked with the parent throughout, right from the day they came for an inquiry to month after month with the child, the parents were equally excited that, oh, it's going to be so nice that the children are going to experience this. So that is what we need to do. We need to work with them and change their opinions. And when they see their child truly, truly happy, raring to go to school, rather than them having to pull the child out of bed, force them out to have a bath, and then push them out of the door. When they see happiness and excitement, usually parents will get on board because that's what they want to see. They want to see their child happy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Niyati, tell me honestly, like, have there been parents who've come to you saying, "Oh, my niece can do numbers till 100, but
Yeah.
this guy is only just playing in mud." What are you guys
Yeah,
doing?
we have that. So what we have something called, we do have parents who say, "Ki, but ma'am, all this is fine, but my neighbors they all started writing. Will she also learn to write?" So I always try to tell them that first of all of us learn to read and write. It's not the it's not rocket science. We will teach them how to do it, and they will learn. All will learn. Secondly, I we have something called parents workshops every month, sometimes
Hmm.
twice a month. wherein the class teacher of each class delivers the curriculum. She shares the what's going to happen in the school in terms of the curriculum with the parents in the forthcoming 15 days. So today, if I'm in the workshop, I will explain that in the next 15 days what curriculum will be done. That will be in all areas, not just English and math, but in all areas. And she explains in a lot of detail that why am I doing this activity? What is the purpose of this activity? How will it help your child? So we get a great opportunity once or twice a month to answer questions of parents, and they might say that, ma'am, will he pick this up? Ma'am, right now he's writing mirror images. How will this work out? So we kind of have this conversation, and we have it publicly with a group of 20 parents. So what happens is that even if it's my question, I may not have asked it, but somebody else asked it, so it gets solved. And then that's how we get a lot of we get a lot of the parents are on with us, alignment in what we want to do. That is definitely something that really helps us. We work with the parents for these things.
Absolutely. I think they're the key stakeholders in this journey.
Yes.
So they have
If
to
they
be
are not
aligned.
clear about what's happening, then they will not. They will get impatient. They may feel, why is he not learning? Why is he not studying? Those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So now moving to the space and infrastructure design for this. So again, we have a question for you. So like, how do your spaces, encourage all of this learning? And if you have to change, for example, you entered a traditional classroom setting, and if you have to change one thing about it to make this more conducive to children's learning, so how would you do that? And how do your spaces at the moment allow for more playful kind of an approach and more child-centric kind of an approach?
This is for me.
Yes.
Okay, so everything in Eklavya is set on a 1 acre land, and we have the preschool building right now, and it's designed from scratch, keeping in mind play. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of indoor outdoor interaction in terms of space. If you see it, if you, I would love for both of you to visit now. One of next time you're in Bangalore, ma'am, Priya, ma'am, you should definitely come.
Definitely looking forward to it.
From anywhere you look in Eklavya, you can always look outside. There's
Mm.
always like at least two sides out of four minimum are open. So that allows for a lot of, like, this feeling that children have, that there's a lot of freedom and ability to play and run outside and do jump and have their fun. So that is point number one. In terms of a classroom, I would in the preschool classroom, find it's very unfortunate that there's too much furniture. There's too many desks, too many chairs, too many. Yeah, I think that crunches the space up and ensures that there's not enough space for the children to just move around.
I don't know whether Shivom and Gudgudee want to hear that, Niyati.
Yes, that is true. That is true. No, but I think furniture can also be very
Yeah, flexible.
flexible, and if it is nice, lightweight, where you can, they turn things around. Now I'm going to make a circle. Now I'm going to change it to something else. That's still possible, but heavy duty furniture that just fills up the room, I'm not very fond of. And I think that in a preschool classroom, movement is more important than having a desk and a chair. I think they get to do a lot of collaborative work if they have floor space. Three or four of them can get together and work on something. That helps them, to negotiate with each other, talk to each other, compromise, problem solve, have a fight, all of those things. Which I think, unfortunately, when you're on a desk and two kids to a desk, it defeats that. And it's the unfortunate thing about desks and chairs is always faces a particular direction. So it limits your worldview. So in the early years, I would say having an uncluttered space, um, very
Is the
open,
key.
very khula, with lot of ventilation. In our classrooms, there's an entire wall which actually is just a sliding door, so you can always go outside. So we wanted that
Hmm.
kind of space.
Hmm. Hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. And Priya, extending this question to you as well, that how do your spaces, encourage playful learning and explorations, while also managing some of the parent expectations? I think I'm coming here also from my experience when I design play areas and I design them slightly challenging for children, like really high heights or some challenging climb or something. Often people come and say, oh my God, this is very difficult and we don't want children to get hurt. Let's lower down the height. So, um, how do you manage parents' expectations of a certain traditional setup versus what you are offering in your school? And how do you navigate those?
Um, I think, see, the thing is, the point of reference for most of us is the familiar system that we perhaps all of us came from, right? So you're now moving away from what is very familiar. And just the fact that we are moving away means you're stepping into a certain kind of uncertainty, I would say. So the uncertainty lies with the teaching team, with the parents, with the leaders, with the extended family as well. Constantly question, because that becomes a point of reference. So, but when you are looking at all of this change that is happening, I see it as the biggest shift in the mindset. So you're no more you're going to be giving an instruction. It's not going to be an instruction-led classroom day in and day out. There will be at some point of time, because that's how curriculum transacts. But you're moving more into an inquiry base. Similarly, you're saying it's not about the teacher being the sage on stage and giving answers constantly, but you're now starting to value the questions that are coming from the students per se. Then how are we delivering this content? And there's also this whole thing about this co-creation that everybody is talking about today, because it is that negotiation that is happening, and you kind of move forward. So like very rightly Niyati was mentioning, the flexibility needs to be brought in when you need to aid a certain pedagogical practice or the philosophy in the classroom. So when you ask that question to Niyati, the first answer that popped in my head is I'll throw all the benches and desks. And that's the exercise we've taken up for this summer, to say, okay, could we do one floor where, it is far more limited than what we would actually need. So um, originally, when we first started 15 years ago, we were in a very uncanny neighborhood, completely filled with typical traditionally minded people, a lot of very conservative people about education. And you know how Chennai is, right? Every child needs to get to the gates of the IITs or whatever, Anna universities. But to start an IB curriculum school in a place like that, in a building that was already built, it had some other office out there, they moved out, we went in and occupied. We had to be very innovative in the way we were using the space. It was very limited as well. So I think that's when it started that. I think the fact that we didn't come from traditionally school running businesses did not hold us back. What we thought was completely genuine. It came from complete creative aspects of our own working styles. And we said, if we need to transact this curriculum, and this is a fixed space, now how do I use the space effectively? So when we actually got an opportunity to build one of our campuses, and a few years later the other campus out, our conversations with the architect was not about the number of classrooms. We did not talk in terms of square feet. All of that was for him to crack. But we said, here are 3 or 4 aspects that we want. We always found that reading was on the decline. And it still is. Then how do we build a reading habit? So what are those features we can bring in to ensure there's reading? The second thing is the world is, we are talking about collaboration, but truly are we collaborating? Am I open enough for a student to walk into my room and talk to me, share something with me? There are like four walls out there. Then how do I enable conversations where nobody's saying, oh, she walked into so and so's room, oh, the coordinator picked her up and asked her to come there? No, could we have conversations in private but in the public view, so that the child is also not feeling intimidated? So a lot of these features were the discussions for us with our architect, and we said, okay, how would you enable this? How would you bring this forward? We also know at the same time, when you run a K-12 space, uh, like she said, she ended very beautifully. Niyati said that the parent is looking for happiness in the child, right? The parent is lives in the moment. They live in a very, very short-sighted thing. My child is in pre-KG. I want happiness. I want happiness. I want happiness. I also need them to learn ABCD and 1, 2, 3, 4 and addition and subtraction, chemical formulae. Hey, he's preparing for IIT Madras or whatever, that kind of a competitive exam, and the child is all of in grade 6 there, right? So the narrative of the parent changes. But as an educator, it's my responsibility to know, to understand that yes, today we are receiving this child in their early years. For the next 15 years that they are going to go through, the child can get into a competitive exam, or they can do anything else, whatever it is that they choose to do. So how does the learning and what is important at every stage get amplified because of the infrastructure that we have? So the same space has to become very, very flexible. What is used for a child in the kindergarten years to move around and play, does that become something of a value to learn a concept in the higher grades? So one of the things that we did over a summer is, through our sand pits, we laid different pipes, and we have these pipes jutting out of the sand. And these kids are just there playing and, whatever they are doing over there. But I've seen several times that the physics teacher actually walks up there and she does some lesson on sound out there. So how do you make that flexible? And is this something, and I'm very far removed from physics, but you kind of think of ideas and then you go and ask somebody and say, hey, is this something that will work? Will it really work? What if I cement it up and then tomorrow there's a problem, I can't dig it back? Because you also have to keep an idea on your cost. So how is it that we are doing all of these places? So and when all of this happens, it was not a natural step for my physics teacher to go start using that, or for my biology teacher to walk into the garden spaces and find. Then you start working with the teachers, start nudging them, prodding them, giving them possibilities of saying, okay, why don't you go explore the places and see what is the lesson that you can gather out of that, and you come. So I would say that, infrastructure wise, there is several people who are playing together to make that learning happen. They say a child is, it takes a village to raise a child. And we try to understand that at every significant step along the way, I would say.
Wonderful. Yeah, I really loved this example that you gave about, pipe and sand. I think that's also one of the play equipments that we have where we, hear you talk from one end and you can hear from the other, and
Okay.
it's
I could see
wonderful.
you smile and I knew there was something up there.
But also what you said after, which is, like how your physics teacher sometimes took some classes around sound there and all of that. And that brings me to the next question where, um, curriculum is one, parents' expectations is another, and letting the child be and letting them lead their learning is also another. But in this entire system, I think the educators and the staff becomes a really important, you know, as you said, like active in the entire ecosystem. And how do you make sure that they are not buried into administrative work and into so many different kinds of things that they have to do on a day-to-day basis, but also have this joy and also have this thing to go out there and experiment with sound pipes without having to worry, oh my God, my lesson there has to be covered for this thing. So how do you balance that? Being in a K-12 school, where I think the pressures would be immense. कि नहीं वहाँ पे I have to also prepare for this exam and all of that. So how do you handle that?
Um, I'm just going to see. I wish I could see who the audience was, because if it's a whole lot of teachers, or is it teacher leaders, or is it just parents? But anyway, I think it's a very moderated and it's a very balanced approach to it. So see, regardless of the curriculum a school follows, whether it's a CBSE or an IB or anything else, there is a framework that is given, and sometimes the framework is a little rigid in some cases. But I'm going to talk only from the IB and the Cambridge framework, which I'm the most familiar with. My experience is otherwise as a student in the CBSE. So when I look at this framework, it is but a framework, right? So you just have the borders that are designed, and anything that happens within that border determines how something moves or how something functions. So I would say it's literally like a two-pronged approach to it. You have the teachers who need to kind of be within the framework, which means, do you go to the class prepared? Are you looking at a variety of resources that you're taking in? Are you able to cater to the different needs of every child that is needed, that is there as a part of your class? Are we reaching out to their learning style as far as possible? Of course, the stakes get higher at every stage, but I'll never ever dilute the stakes of an ELC or of a primary as well, because unless you have reached that a stage of certain learning, that's when you keep constructing on it as you go. That's the theory of constructivism in education, right? So you're constantly constructing and making more deeper meaning. So a teacher has to definitely fall within the framework, must have her lessons ready, must understand whatever practice. And talking both about IB and Cambridge, there is a lot of documentation. It is a very documentation heavy. But if you're going to look at it as a piece of work, that's again the personal attitude, then it is a chore. It is a pain point. If I know that I have to get up and cook every single morning because it's a chore, it becomes boring after some time. But if I say, hey, you know what, I can explore this today, I'm going to make something lighter today, and I'm going to perhaps just tell them, here's the money, go and figure out your lunch today, then my approach is like kind of one give and take, and I start finding a little joy in what I'm doing rather than it just being a chore. Now, having said all of that, the same curricula that I'm talking about gives you a lot of flexibility to navigate whatever that we have to learn or whatever we have to do within that. There is no absolute lesson plan that is given to a teacher and said, go and deliver this. That is not what it is. The outcomes are defined. How do I reach that outcome? There can be several paths to it. This physics teacher decided that she wants to take them there. But I'm sure there would have been several other ways in which the same sound lesson could have been taken. And how did it happen before we had all this fitted out many years ago? Somewhere the teacher did make the sound lesson possible for them. So there are different ways. You just like kind of look at ways in which they can use it. So I'm again not a science person, but sometimes I do have this, maybe it's bizarre thinking, I don't know. But, you know, if you look at an atom and, you know, I kind of read a little bit, hoping that at some point of time in my life, all the science will make sense to me. But when you look at an atom and then you look at the atoms being made up of neutrons, protons, electrons, right? And you know the electrons are like constantly moving. They are still within the whatever defines the periphery or the circumference of an atom, but there's still a lot of movement within. And I know that there is some predictability, there's some unpredictability in it. I mean, I'm not getting into that level. So if you can just take that and you kind of put that in a school, that's how it is. There is a system in place, there is a framework, there is a reference point, but at least in a school like ours, it is not about saying this is the only way. It's my way or the highway. It is this way or the highway. No, you allow every person, because everybody is coming with a baggage, right? They come with their personal experiences, they come with what they know, what they are comfortable with, and all that. So you allow that to seep into the classrooms, because that's when the connect happens, I would say.
Got it. Got it. What is interesting is what you said about like every teacher comes with some baggage, some past experience of what they would have seen that
And by baggage,
works.
I don't mean negative baggage all the time.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
Anything, just a bag of experiences and likes and
Yes.
dislikes, or whatever. Mm.
Yes, yes, yes. So from that question to Niyati, that I think it must also be sometimes a process for you to take your teachers and your staff on a journey because what you're doing is slightly radical. It is something based on trust on the child, on the staff, and on the approach. So, how do you initiate your teachers into this journey so that they are also as aligned to your playful way of approaching education, and they themselves are not perhaps over participating in children's education, saying, okay, am I doing enough? So how do you balance that with the teachers?
That's a very nice way of putting it. Over participating, not interfering, over participating. I like that. It's a much more diplomatic way of saying. Acha. No, the kind of person, so I like to start from the recruitment process because I think that whole thing really has each stage has an impact on the other. So we always look for educators who have a learner mindset. So we look for people who are committed and who are okay with saying, like, who look like they're okay with saying that it's okay, I don't know, I'll figure it out. So they're not always of the same opinion. They don't have this feeling that, oh, I've been working for 15 years, so I know everything. So how can I? Because what they've been doing right in their own way is not what Eklavya is going to be doing. So if you come with that mindset, you won't fit in. And I will always be, it'll always be a clash of cultures, a clash of belief systems, which will be detrimental for the child. So one is we look for people with a learner mindset. Secondly, we recruit well in advance. We recruit 6 to 8 months in advance of the academic year in which they're going to teach. Why we do 6 months in advance is that we spend that 6 months, that the teacher spends that 6 months being an observer in classrooms, helping, understanding how the current class teachers are handling the children, what is the gentleness with which they interact with the child, where are they firm, where are they understanding. When we work with children, and I say this with reference to all ages, not just preschool children, everything I feel is a little bit of a contextual interaction, like, like there's no such thing as, like, firm hard line on everything. Certain things, like, you may say, oh, you've broken this rule, whatever it may be, but did the child intend for it to be, uh, was it an intentional breaking of the rule? Was it just something that he was exploring or she was exploring? There's various things that the child that you find out once you have that talk with the child. So it's important that teachers learn to first understand the child rather than pass a judgment on the child or punish or pass a judgment. So this is not something I can just teach through a professional development workshop. It has to be experienced. A lot of our own teachers who join us around 4 5 months after they join us, a very common thing that we hear from them is that my child is now telling me that, Mama, you have stopped shouting at me. Why have you stopped shouting at me? Earlier you used to shout a lot when I didn't do my homework, and now you're quite calm, huh? So they often tell me that, they feel that, oh, I was unduly harsh to my child. when they didn't do their work. I wasn't as patient. I didn't bother to find out why the child was procrastinating, why the child wasn't doing something. So those things they pick up on slowly, by observing. And it's not something that I can just teach theoretically. If you don't see it in practice, you often don't believe that it can actually be done. That is one thing. And of course, secondly, we do a lot of professional development with them. So we read a lot of education related books, whether it's Montessori or Waldorf books. We read a lot and we try to understand children of different ages together through our reading. And that's a weekly thing. Apart from that, keep having to spark joy in them. So lots of different things have to be done with them, which keeps them also in that learner mindset. So, for example, now we're going to have a tie and dye workshop where they're going to tie and dye, learn how to do tie and dye dupattas. And before that, we had a film session. So they watching different kinds of films, not your typical Hindi or Kannada films, but some very interesting short films, which they would otherwise not have uh, perhaps watched. So, keeping them open minded, engaged, curious, I think that helps a lot in, therefore, then it transfers to the child that they work with. Because eventually, I don't work with all children all the time. My role is little different. So, they are the ones who are in the classroom, whatever, 5 or 6 or 8 hours a day with the child. Be they have to pass
Hmm.
this on to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to the next question, like what you said about, the teachers taking the lead, them, because they are the ones who are interacting with the children on a daily basis. They know what is working, what is not. And also tying this back to the Women's Day, that often care is as something is always assigned to women naturally, whether is it at home, it's for in a professional setting, for like education and everything. So um, and I think you both as leaders for school. So how do you um, create that environment for your teachers so that they come up with new ideas, they lead from front, and uh, they are able to take the ethos or the soul that you guys have built, and how do they take it forward? And I think this is a question for both of you, whoever wants to go first.
You want to say
So, Priya,
something?
you can start, and till then I'll think about what I want to say.
um, I think this is like culture building, right, from day one. And culture building is something that stays, and anybody can feel it, regardless of the presence of that individual or a set of individuals. So, um, I personally, I believe that everything is a huge, huge, huge circle, right? What goes around will come around at some point of time, whatever you want to call it. So, very intentionally, a culture needs to be built, and for us, the non-negotiables are that it's built on trust, it's built on trustworthiness, on mutual respect, on ability to have. The mindset to come and question. If I say I'm encouraging question in the classroom, I encourage questions even in the meeting forums, the staff meeting forums, right? It is good to question. So how do you kind of respond to all of that is what collectively I think builds a culture. And when you go from a space of being fair, then I think the understanding is far better. And like what Niyati said, the professional learning is not about just a classroom strategy. It is not just about a classroom management. It's not about just a pedagogical practice that you want them to adopt. It's also about how do we build us to trust each other? How do we build that open communication between each other? Very often, very, very often, we have parents who walk in, just not just parents, even guests who walk in who say that oh, there's something really warm about this place. And I actually go back and I think about it, and this is something consistently I've heard, regardless of the physical space we've been in. And we were not in a great physical building for the first many years, maybe the first half of our existence. And people would still say that, and I'll be like, oh my God, look at that broken thing, and look at this, and look at that, and that is not there, and hey, go and put one table there so that that person is not looking at it. I mean, we've done all kinds of things, right? Because you want to show, but ultimately, if somebody is really discerning, they find that connect. They find that it is not just what is offered to them into their bank accounts, or as just qualifications, or just as promotions that is given year on year, but they value relationships. They value the openness. They value the kind of trust that is built with them, and the kind of open communication that kind of happens with them. So uh, for us, it is about all of this. And whenever anything new goes, it's never a top down approach. So things are a little slower, if I may say, but we need everybody's input into it. When we developed our performance management system, that was during the COVID. We were all off, I mean, completely online then, 2020. But we heard the voice of every single teacher, somebody who joined us in 2020, way before that. They all came in and we said, could we try this out? What is it? So you kind of get there. So they start to co-create. They become a part and they start to own things. I think that's how it is built. And then, of course, there's this long story of how do you nurture it? How do you strengthen it? And all of that. That is also something that as a leader, I need to keep an eye on it. Yeah, Niyati, please.
Niti, I would also add
Yeah.
another angle to it. Do you think it's true that women have mostly at the forefront of doing mostly this change in educational systems and how they approach learning? Do you think that's true, and how, again, tying back to the previous question?
I'd have to make a blanket statement. I mean, the thing is, there are more women in the education space, period. Uh, all the, I mean, you'll have more, any school you take, you usually have more female teachers to male. So yes, that would, the law of, what do you call it? Just the averages would probably win that argument. But it's also something to be thought of that we have a lot of men in leadership positions within schools. So even if they're not at the classroom level, they're there at the leadership position. So that is true. A lot of people, male founders may have female principals, but you know what I mean. At the founding roles, at the management levels, you have a lot of men, and they do, I suppose, have a say in how the curriculum, how the changes will be done in the school, and the way in which the children will be taught. So that is one thing. But yes, I suppose women are more at this uh, in this industry, and therefore are leading change. Um, yeah. I think more than anything else, women are more like, well, I won't say more suited, but uh, caregiving roles, and I would say education is one of them. You are providing care and love and support in many ways, even more than what you're teaching them. I think in those roles, women do really well, and they feel very joyful and happy and fulfilled. Um, it's not to say that male teachers don't feel that way, but I think there is a lot of joy that they feel. They feel very fulfilled when they work with children, when they help children. And I suppose to some extent, children also feel very cared for when they have feminine role models in front of them.
Yeah, true, true, true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we are almost coming towards the end, and in this we in the session we covered about how playful learning and play-led learning can, how does it encompass the space, the teacher, the child themselves, and also, as you both as the school leaders, we saw that how you have put in your whole heart into creating this ecosystem where, and you've taken it much beyond yourselves. And Priya, you've done like a 15-year journey. Niyati, you've started recently, but I think your experience in this has been spanning many years. So, if you had to like, and this is for your and the audience also today, that if you had to give an advice to someone who's starting today, or if you had to go back all of those years and start all over again, what would you do differently, or what would you say, okay, this I think I did right. This I would say, okay, if you do this, you will get something. So what would be that? So Priya, you go first on that.
Because I'm the older of the two. But what would I change or what would I do differently? Uh, Actually, nothing, Aditi. I would want to relive every conversation, every experience, but I only wish that I would have a little more maturity in approaching all of that. But I would perhaps want every single minute back. Uh, I mean, always just imagine, right? We constantly keep talking about our childhood days, our graduating days, and all of that. So, do we definitely want to change something from that? We don't. We have very, very happy memories. So, for us also at Akshar Arbor, it's always been very happy memories. There have been very tough times. Sometimes we are going through very tough times, but you know that that is also a big circle. It's a very big cycle. So it will change. It's a little testing, but it's perhaps testing the maturity levels. It's perhaps testing our patient levels, our how much. I mean, we can't just keep giving assessments to our children, right? We also need to be assessed at times, and these are the leadership assessments that happen to us. How are we dealing with all of that? But I would just want to relive everything again. I want to capture all those moments, and I want to relive them again. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think that shows that, the whole journey you've really, really enjoyed. Because if you're saying, okay, I want to relive the entire thing, that shows the amount
I'm
of
perhaps
heart
painting
that.
a much rosier picture up here
Yeah,
with you.
so nice.
I mean, on a coffee side, it could be some other stories as well. But yeah, it's okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Even if it was the hardship, I really want to relive that and see how do I approach it again.
Yeah. But what would you say, like there are, irrespective of what you're doing, there are always these low points and high points. So, and low points are more, is very, very tough. So is, what are those things that kept you going even in those hard times?
Um, Quite a few things. Just that I always feel, personally, I always feel that I've been very blessed as a person. I don't have too many regrets in life. In fact, I don't have any regrets in life. I may like something or I may not like, and that's very, very momentary. I don't have any regrets. So I always think that if I feel really blessed, then I am going to find the strength, whether it's within me or it's from the people and things around me, to face this and to move on. So for me, that is something that is kind of keeps me going. The other thing is also that I read poetry and I have a bit of a creative bent of mind, and I just have very wild imaginative mind which just goes on. So The words of Khalil Gibran, right, on children. The children are not your children. Uh, when I first read it a couple of decades ago, it left a very profound impact, and perhaps at that point of time, I was not a mom. Uh, but over the years, it keeps coming back to me again and again and again, and I keep finding more meaning in it, or rather, it sits more with me now. And for me, in the school context, it is like to say that every child is precious, right? And somebody gives you I mean, you own a pair of gold earrings, you'll keep it very, very carefully. And somebody comes and gives you a gold pair of earrings, you take care of it a little more because you know that at some point of time you need to return. It's not your own kind. So I keep thinking about the same thing to say, these children are entrusted, then okay, what is the best I can do? They can be false, they can be slips, they can be misses. To err is human, but do we recognize all of that? Do we make the change? Do we look at what is best for that human being? Because we started the conversation about why are we looking at non-traditional schools and looking at something new, and that's how you kind of brought us both into the picture. But no, the children have come and gone for millennia now, right? We are just playing the game in this time frame, and but we are playing this game here for the children to live there. So then this responsibility is huge for me, and that poetry keeps coming back to me again and again. Maybe that gives me the strength to say, no, go on, it's okay, you will cross this hump, you will get over this pitfall, let's just keep going. And I think the people around me and the great gurus that I've had in my life, complete surrender to them for what the lived values that they have very generously shared with me. That's why I say I think I was very lucky. I am very lucky.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think this question was more for me rather than the audience, just to see that how do you get through, the hard times. But thank you so much for sharing that. Niyati, question to you again. Like, what would you have done differently, or what is that one thing that you would say to anyone who's starting now that this is what this is one thing that you follow will be okay.
So we started the school started in 2023. So it's now in its third academic year. It's a bit early to tell you what I could have done differently because time will tell. Right now, I mean, there's been a lot of learning. There have been goof ups as well. I wouldn't deny that, but nothing so egregious that you couldn't come out of it or you couldn't. Can you hear me? Yeah, so nothing so difficult that you couldn't come out of it. So that was fine. But honestly, Siddharth, my husband and I were the co-founders, and we're right now just really living our dream. So this school has, before it existed, brick and mortar, it existed in my mind for how many years. I have made the time without a, like, there was no teacher, there was no school, there was not even, like, nobody had agreed also "Okay, we should start the school." But I used to still make timetables on it, and I used to figure out, after this class, and how will I make this? What will I do? So I used to dream it. I used to dream what kind of flowers I want to plant in the entrance. So right now, I'm just so incredibly thrilled. Like, this is not many people in this world get to believe it.
Experience and see, yeah.
I mean, it really, like, sometimes both of us, like, he's comforting me because I'm in tears, and like, we think, oh my God, like, I can't believe it's happening. So I can't believe it's happened. I can't believe there's kids over here, who are our kids. So I feel that, yeah, I'm just really happy, and I would tell everyone who wants to start a school to start a school and love it and enjoy it. And it's a really, really challenging thing to do, but wow, it's incredibly fulfilling. It's the kind of thing you would probably devote your entire life to. So this is the only thing I would tell somebody who wants to start a school, is that know that a school is your life's career. It's not a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. It's a lifetime plan because you will really know if you succeeded around 15 years after you begin. So till then, you're just doing 15 years of mehnat to see whether, and you really won't even know after 15 years if you've been successful. You'll actually know after 20, 25, because then those kids have settled down, they've gotten married, they've had a few jobs, they've seen a little bit of life themselves, they've had some tough times themselves, and how they deal with those will really tell
Hmm.
whether you were successful in preschool or junior school or middle school or high school. So I think for us, it's a long game, and we were always very excited by that. But if you're not excited by it, then probably school's not the
Place.
place for you, to be very frank.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
I
are
think
right at
that's
that spot,
yeah.
Niyati.
Sorry?
From when we started, this is going to be our first graduating batch who stayed with us from kindergarten to grade 12.
Yeah, and you really know now whether you were
Now,
successful
not
then.
even now, I would say when they graduate and they go and then
Correct.
they come
Correct.
back. So I need to
You have
wait for
to,
us
they
another,
also have to live life a little
yeah,
bit outside. Then
three
you
to
will
four
really
years
know.
before I know.
Yes.
But this is a extra special batch for us.
Monumental thing. Absolutely right. It's a 20-year game. It's a 25-year-old game.
Yeah.
Then you really get to know whether you were doing the right thing. So
Mhm.
you keep asking yourself whether it's worth it. And if you wake up every morning saying this is wonderful, then this is the place for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's just so amazing to hear the experiences and also the kind of vision that you guys have. Like most of us on this company, we think of 5-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plan. And Joe, you're thinking like 15 years, 25 years. And that's just really amazing, the kind of vision that you will have to carry, the kind of enthusiasm that you have to carry for so many years to see the change that you're looking for. That's insanely amazing. And I think we'll try and wrap it up. I'll add from a designer's lens that the most joyful spaces because I think being a space designer, product designer, that I've always walked into were never accidents. They were, I think, shaped by quiet, persistent efforts by people who said, okay, children deserve better. And I see that you've done in your schools the same in terms of how you have gone the extra mile to train the teachers or create those spaces or taken on board the parents who are equal and more stakeholders in this journey. And you've taken all of that effort to bring those happy spaces. And I think this is a kind of almost like a rebellion that exists with all of these run-of-the-mill factory model kind of systems. And on this Women's Day, I think that is something that we should celebrate and encourage going forward. So, to everyone who's watching, if this conversation moved something in you, inspired you, or reminded you of someone, please tag that school leader, tag that teacher, tag that passionate person who you would like to share this with and spread the word. And it is really amazing to have this conversation with Priya and Niyati Handa. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Niyati. And
Pleasure,
thank
complete
you
pleasure.
for all of you
It's a
being here.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting you, Priya ma'am.
Same here, same here. Look forward. Please welcome to our space anytime.
Next
Both of
time,
you. Yeah.
Chennai.
Yes.
Non-summertime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much
Thank
for
Thank
you.
having us.
you.
Thank you, CIVOM and Mr. Yogi
Thank you to
for
the
bringing
entire
such wonderful people
team.
into my circle as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Yashmi.
Should
Should we leave?
yeah, I think so. Let's
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe just wait for a couple of minutes. So.